divulge with you all yet another internet tale of a YouTube personality.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen. Well, really, so in the early days of YouTube, it was kind of wild. It was a wild west. The rules were not really well established due to YouTube having been something that was never really experienced before, especially in terms of things like fair use and copyright. So early on in the service, as you can imagine, there was copyright shenanigans abound. I'm talking whole seasons of Nickelodeon shows being uploaded to the site, and it was pretty crazy. Like, you know, whole movies, people doing reviews or just basically showing movies on their channel and making money off of it. So, you know, over time, YouTube would grow the clamps, so to speak, and make more and more restrictions on exactly what fair use is as it's experienced in the internet era. And while some things like reviews and editorials were, you know, protected, really the definition of what did and didn't constitute fair use was so vague, and the tools in place that give a company the ability to say either monetize your video, if it's not monetized, then place ads on it so they can make money off of it because you mentioned their song, or if they just get the video demonetized entirely and or copyright claimed, which, you know, restricts the video from being shown in certain countries. And like, for example, whenever I uploaded a Dance Central or Rock Band 4 video, it would always be blocked in a few countries. Oh, and claimed by UMG.
Wow.
So while YouTube did eventually find a way to get these people their monies, companies would sooner abuse it than, you know, use it for what it's legitimately used for. And that could go anywhere from maybe killing off a review that they don't particularly like, or someone's talking over some trailer footage and they don't like what they said, so they kill their preview video. You know, little things like that. The Nostalgia Critic started in the middle of that fracas, and while he would prove to have a fundamental misunderstanding of exactly what fair use is, basically the early days of the Nostalgia Critic were him really just giving a rundown of the movie from its major points, using the footage, using the footage from the movie in his review. And that was his whole shtick. But the problem was, usually when you do a review, there's usually an opinion. There's usually, or it's like you've heard how the critical drinker will interpret the the going-ons of a video in his own unique way. And he's basically doing it over trailer footage in loops. But he's so entertaining, you know. You're getting a markedly different experience than actually going to watch the movie yourself. You know, unfortunately, we are all the lesser that we don't actually hear, "Nah, it'll be fine," in our videos, but, you know, we can't have everything. That having been said, there was a really good argument that the Nostalgia Critics videos in particular kind of replaced the experience of watching the movie. I'm not gonna lie, I saw his video on Demolition Man, and even though he did not go over the entire movie beat for me, he did go over it enough that you kind of don't really need to watch it afterward. So, so fed up of all the copyright claimings and such, he would eventually leave the service, go to a competitor, Blip.tv, and then when the world realized nobody could YouTube but YouTube and Blip died, he went back to YouTube, but in order to avoid the copyright claims that had plagued him and eventually run him off the service, he now, instead of using actual footage of things, he now has props and costumes, and he and his staff reenact the plots themselves with live action
That's
clips.
funny.
So
does that work?
I mean, yeah, technically they're not using the movie footage. Technically they're acting out the parts of the movie he happens to be talking about. It's technically not the same. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually a good solution to that if you have the resources to do all
Yeah,
that.
I mean, uh, there's a there's a markedly low budget charm to the whole thing. If you catch my production values jive that I'm spilling
Oh,
for
I
you,
see.
picking up what I'm throwing down here, throwing down
Okay.
the toilet. No, but yeah, so that is why that is why Doug Walker, unfortunately, is convinced that he is a filmmaker and not just a critic of things he's nostalgic about. I'm sure he's a great person, but his stuff is terrible.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Like the the stuff he produces.
Yes,
Terrible?
and you know, he very recently had what I would call the DJ Khaled effect on his work, past and present, because you know, low budget charm is only really appealing or relatable when you feel like it's come from a genuinely good and humble place. Like your crap looks like crap,
Yeah.
okay, but you know, you got heart, kid. That's very endearing to an audience, especially when stuff looks like Bantha
So you were
Poodle.
alive, Guardian.
I think something happened. The switch flipped in his brain, and I think he might have convinced himself that he's an actual filmmaker.
I think your mic cut out. I can't hear you.
What?
Oh, that's better. That's much better.
I was just saying, I think he at some point
Guardian,
convinced
by all
himself
means.
that he was an
Let's
actual
get started.
filmmaker capable of making films.
Oh, that
Yeah, and
sucks.
now his critiques don't really come off necessarily as, you know, impassioned or overly perceptive. Now they just come off as kind of weirdly pretentious. Like, it sounds like he's critiquing them because he thinks he's better than them.
Oh,
Like he-
wait. So why does he think
I
that?
don't
Because
know. He recently did. You didn't hear about his review of The Wall? Oh my
no.
god. Well, it went down in infamy as the worst review of anything ever.
What is the wall?
What? God, no, 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 K Boomer. You are not gonna do this to me. What? You don't know what The Wall is?
I don't know. I mean, are you talking about the Pink Floyd
Yes!
album? What are we?
What puzzles?
How many walls are there?
So he reviewed that?
Yes, he did.
I don't know.
You don't know? How many walls are there between this
mean,
one
we
and
could-
Donald
I thought-
Trump's? Not a lot of famous walls.
I thought that he only reviewed movies for some reason.
Oh! Gee, I'm gonna. Hold. I need a technical difficulty slide. That's it. I'm going into Photoshop tonight. It's gonna have like a picture of a melting ice cube or something.
What?
Jessica.
What?
Pink Floyd's album, The Wall, came out in 1979. It was adapted into an
Okay.
animated movie in 1982,
Oh, I didn't know
also titled.
This war
Pink
is a
Floyd's
complicated
The Wall.
algorithm, to be certain.
It's like a visual. It's basically like a
If we end the
visual
down ends with
album
us,
that
fate
goes
is
with
too
the
terrible to
that goes with the actual album.
that. Oh, that's
Plays for
cool.
the duration of the album, and each animated sequence is drawn by a different artist, and they all represent the different themes in the album. A lot of them coming from I think Roger Waters' life, early life as a child, you know, growing up in boarding school in World War II, and etc. etc. A lot of themes of the album refer to these quite frankly ridiculous,
Bring back our lost
revolutionary
archives.
visual scapes
Some things are finite.
that all look surreal and haunting and weird and screwy. And even though I think it got snubbed,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of got snubbed, but it was still a, you know, still one of those movies that went down in infamy as being particularly interesting.
Oh, I have not seen it. I wasn't aware of anything of it being anything but an
Mhm.
album.
Remain
That's
vigilant,
interesting
Guardian.
tidbit.
We may never
Maybe
be
I'll
as
see if I
safe
can
as
get
you
it,
think.
or maybe it's on a streaming service of Rab. But yeah. So the Nostalgia Critic decided to review that in his review style that exists now. You know, the one where he's just not sitting at a table, staring into a camera and screaming into it. Like, you know, he threw that away for this new thing that he does. So of course that means when he reviews The Wall, he literally remakes a parody album of The Wall.
Oh, that's why would
Song
he
for
do
song.
that? That's terrible.
And a lot of the songs apparently are like the critiques of The Wall, but it isn't so much critiques of The Wall as they are brazen, aggressively incorrect misinterpretations of the source material, which makes the criticism stupid and the critique hollow and baseless. It's the worst thing ever.
Why is it hollow?
Because, dear, if you're okay, because if you are blatantly misinterpreting the material and making critiques based on your misinterpretation, the critique is hollow because it's not based in any kind of objective reality, and it's baseless because it's based on things that don't exist. Like, okay. Like, for example, I think there's a portion of the movie where, you know, he describes being in his boarding school as being alienating and, you know, isolating, felt very alone, and like he was in danger all the time.
Guardians are always welcome.
Because he was in school, in a boarding school in Germany during World War II. Okay, you look up in the sky, there are planes.
Oh, wow.
Hello, you never know what's going to happen. It's a time of war, etc. For some reason, this social and political anxiety, as it is represented through the film, came off to the Nostalgia Critic like he was whining about school because it's hard.
Oh.
Do you see what path you start going down when you put that kind of gas in your car? You filled your... Okay. Can I get out before you turn the ignition? Yeah. So, it's an abomination. It was Anthony Fantano's number one worst album of 2019.
Wait, his review of The Wall was Anthony Fantano's worst album of 2019?
Yes, because it was an actual album that he put on iTunes and Spotify, and it has bonus tracks that weren't in the 44-minute long review. Because...
Why though? Come on.
And I think I think that Anthony said something that was extremely true when he was talking about the album. And I found very, very true. He said, you know, when listening to when experiencing this thing, because we don't know what to call it, he finally found himself in the seat of the person who like looks at someone online who does reviews and who does critiques. You know, often he encounters people who say, oh, well, you think you're so important and your opinion means so much because you sit in front of a camera with a flannel shirt on and give album scores. And he said, you know, for the first time, he sat down and he found himself sitting in their seats, seeing what he must look like these people. Because for Doug Walker to feel like his opinion of The Wall was so valid, so necessary, so intrinsic to the existence of our species on this planet that he felt like he had to produce an entire album, shoot a 44-minute review / parody with full costumes and weird shit. I mean, what else does that say except you think your opinion is the most necessary thing to the zeitgeist? Like,
yeah. Indeed.
If not that, what? I said, wow, you're actually, yeah. Uh-oh. He lived long enough to see himself become the villain.
He really did. He really did live long enough to see himself become the villain. Wow, that's amazing.
I knew I was going to end up segueing into the wall. I knew it. I knew it. I mean, how can you even talk about the Nostalgia Critic these days without mentioning his review of the wall? Sorry. Of the wall?
Of the wall. See, I mean, the reason I was confused is because I didn't think anyone would make a review of the wall.
That's
like now.
Yeah, that's another
universally recognized as a classic,
yes.
And that's it. It's like doing a review of Taxi Driver.
Yes.
It's like, why?
Actually, that's something that Anthony also said too. He's like, I'm in my mid-30s. I can't imagine that Doug is very much older than me, which means that, for him, he literally has to go back in time in order to get this. It's not even part of his childhood. Like, there's nothing. He's the nostalgia critic. You can't be nostalgic about the wall. It's older than you.
Right.
It's already set in
So
stone.
I don't get it. I'm confused.
It exists. What are you doing? He made a whole parody album. Someone actually did like weird parodies of every song on the wall. It's like the dark side of the internet, I tell you. Sometimes you reach the really weird corners.
That definitely was a...
I think it's really funny. When I started YouTubing, so to speak, I used to watch a lot of Nostalgia Critic. I remember when I stopped watching a lot of Nostalgia Critic, and it was around that point when the skits started happening. And it's not like it happened right away. Like, the first few skits were actually endearing in their clunky stupidness. I think he did, like, Mad Max Fury Road and The Matrix, and it was very obvious that everyone was very self-aware about the fact that they were basically using the same 3 hallways in an office. And there's a lot of charm to that. You glean into that. Okay, it's YouTube. Okay, broadcast yourself. Okay, if we wanted high production values, we'd be watching Jimmy Kimmel. Oh wait, he's on YouTube now. Okay, so I think maybe around I think he did like a review of Moulin Rouge or something like that, and it was a literal musical. When I started to go, wait, what's the joke? Is the joke that the singing's bad? Because that's not true. Why are they singing? You are not classically trained. Oh God. And then I thought to myself, well, why is this necessary? And then after watching 30 minutes of this, I realized that the only actual critique of the movie was the music is good and the acting is bad. And
what?
I mean, I'm not one to typically gauge the ROI on your average YouTube video, Sometimes you fall down a rabbit hole of stupid. But if I'm going to watch a 30-minute long review that also forces me to listen to the music that I'm pretty sure the demons hear as they enter the first circle of hell, I want to... I kind of want to walk away feeling like I heard a legitimate critique of a piece of media and not your bad parody version of it with a, oh, it was all right. What? Next time, put a time code.
Yeah.
Skip to 29:56 for the actual review. By the way, this video's 30 minutes long. Enjoy. I just... You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, so it was a nice run. But we have we have the drinker now, and we have I Hate Everything, and Ralph the Movie Maker.
I don't always agree with the drinker either. I feel like the drinker, he's funny, don't get me wrong, and he has a good understanding of critique. But I feel like watched a couple of his videos where he's blatantly wrong.
I never thought
Yeah.
I'd meet a traveler like this.
Yeah, where he's just misinterpreting things and
Well, you know he is
entertaining,
drunk.
sure. But I'm like, well, that's actually not correct. So, is this a critique or is this you just being drunk?
Well, you know, the shtick is that. Oh, do you want to go somewhere? Do something? Let's do some sundial. Let's unlock
Yeah,
that quest
do
for you.
you-
Let's do that now.
Yeah.
If I
let's-
run one more lap around this tower,
Okay.
I'm gonna eat my boot. Excuse me.
Okay, let's do
It's a very nice
sundial.
boot. It's a exotic peregrine grief.
Don't eat your boot. That's not good.
The EDZ needs our help, Guardian. Get out there.
Okay, so do we do normal or legend?
Normal, because legend is hard and has no matchmaking. We have to
Oh,
get
okay.
Brandon back into the fold. We need Brandon.
I don't know. I feel like we had him do all those boring quests at the
Oh.
beginning
Oh, no,
of
did
the
we break him?
season. We may need to like coax him back. I mean, he didn't say that to me, but I feel like he may have walked away like, I
He
don't
might have
know.
walked away a little bit, but it's weird because like the day before that, I was actually
Yeah.
playing with him. He was fine. I don't, here's the thing. Again, I can't imagine what it's like to jump into Destiny like 5 years in and have all this weird convoluted shit staring back at you, and then the pace of the game seems to be moving at a
Mhm.
rate where, and I completely agree with anyone who says this, you know, FOMO is a manipulative marketing tactic used to scare customers into purchasing or investing, you know, because they've been psychologically manipulated to believe that they need this thing to pass some sort of weird social purity smell test. Now, while that can be a slimy marketing tactic that does indeed hook people, it's not a game mechanic. I don't think you should design your game around FOMO.
Right. Do you feel that Bungie employs that excessively?
I don't think Bungie in particular employs that in any particular way that's negative, but the live service genre, by virtue of the way it works when it's doing what it does well, is going to have some element of, well, you know, if I don't play it at least once a week, or if I don't keep up with it, you know, who knows what I'm going to miss. And if I don't play it for like 2 weeks, oh God,
Yeah.
what's going to happen? So, you know,
Yeah.
unless you are already locked